side of a dusty mountain, throwing fire and smoke into the sky. The alarms had stopped screaming, but his ears still rang. He unbuckled himself and stumbled out, hand over his eyes. This was not Earth, and this was not home. He looked around at the dry land and dark trees that reached like claws into the clouds. No one welcomed him. No rescue beacon blinked, only silence. And the smell of burned metal. He sighed, wiped blood from his lip, and grabbed the old rifle. From the pod storage, Ray had fought many battles before. He had lost friends, medals, and even his place in the human command corps. Exiled for doing the right thing. Now he just wanted peace or at least a meal. But fate had other plans. He followed a path through the dead forest. Something about the trees made him nervous. Their bark pulsed like breathing skin. Suddenly, a sound broke the quiet, a voice, soft and strange. He ducked behind a boulder, aiming his rifle forward. There, in the middle of a half-ruined stone temple, stood a woman, or something like a woman. Tall, slender, with violet skin that shimmered under the alien sun. Her silver-white hair floated as if underwater. Chains wrapped around her ankles and wrists, but she stood like a queen. Ray stepped closer, carefully. The woman looked at him without fear. "You are not one of them," she said, her voice smooth. "Like smoke." "No," Ray answered. "Who are you?" She smiled a smile full of danger and laughter. "I'm Princess Vexa," she said. "Rightful heir to the throne of Valtheron." Ray raised a brow. "And what are you doing here?" "Waiting," she replied, her chains rattling. "For someone stupid or desperate." "Lucky me," Ray muttered. He scanned the area, saw no guards, no soldiers. She noticed his doubt and chuckled. "Oh, they think I'm harmless now," she said. "But if you break these chains, I might surprise you." Ray didn't trust her, but something about her voice sharp, clever, tired stuck in his head. She leaned forward, teasing. "You look strong, human," she whispered. "Strong enough to burn cities." Ray frowned. "What do you want from me?" Her grin widened, and then she spoke the words that would change his life forever. "Restore my throne, and the Snuvva between my legs is all yours," she joked. Ray blinked, stunned. "Excuse me?" "Oh, come now," she laughed. "You Earthmen are all the same, aren't you?" But there was pain behind her eyes. Pain hidden under the laughter. He didn't know whether to walk away or break her chains. He asked, "What is Snuvva?" She gave no straight answer, only whispered, "You'll know it when you see it." The ground shook suddenly. Rebel drones buzzed above, scanning the area. Ray had seconds to decide. He could leave her and run, or fight and stay. She looked at him, dead serious now. "Help me, human," she said. "Not because of my joke, but because I'm the only one who can stop what's coming." "What is coming?" he asked. "The return of something worse than war," she said, her voice tight. "The Snuvva is not what you think." Ray didn't understand it all, but he saw truth in her eyes. He raised his rifle and shot the lock on her chains. They snapped open, and she fell into his arms. "Good," she whispered. "Now run." They ran through the crumbling ruins, side by side. Explosions followed as the drones found them. Ray fired back, covering Vexa as she limped toward an old underground hatch. "Down here," she said. "My father's last escape tunnel." They dropped into the dark corridor just as the sky burned above. In the silence, Vexa sat against the wall, breathing hard. Ray looked at her, sweat and dirt across her royal face. "What now?" he asked. She smiled weakly. "Now," she said, "you start restoring the broken throne." "And the Snuvva?" he asked, voice low. She touched her chest near her heart. "It's not between my legs," she said softly. "It's between galaxies." Ray stared at her, unsure if she was serious. But it didn't matter. He had made his choice, and the but it didn't matter. War, whether he liked it or not, had just begun. Ray couldn't believe he was running again, not from humans this time, but from flying machines that shot red beams from the sky. His boots hit the soft ground as branches slapped his face. Behind him, Vexa laughed like someone who had lost everything. "This way, human," she shouted, even though her leg was bleeding. "Are you enjoying this?" Ray yelled, ducking under a glowing tree root. She gave a tired grin. "I haven't run in years. This feels like freedom." They slid down a muddy hill until they reached a strange rock shaped like a fang. Vexa knelt beside it and pressed her palm against the moss-covered surface. The rock split open with a hiss, revealing a spiral ramp that led into darkness. Ray paused, gripping his rifle. "Are we walking into a trap?" Vexa looked back at him, her smile fading. "If I wanted to kill you, I could have done it when you slept beside my broken chains." "Comforting," Ray muttered, and followed her into the black. The tunnel closed behind them with a heavy thud. Lights along the walls flickered awake, showing old alien writing that meant nothing to Ray. The air was thick, like it hadn't been breathed in 100 years. They walked for minutes without speaking. Ray finally broke the silence. "You said something earlier about Snuvva being alive." Vexa didn't answer at first. Then she said, "Snuvva is not just a name. It's a force, a being, a curse." Ray wanted to ask more, but they reached the end of the tunnel. A large chamber opened before them, filled with dusty relics and rusting machines. In the center was a broken throne with wires running into the walls like veins. Sitting on the armrest was a small black cube, pulsing with a soft blue light. Vexa picked it up with shaking hands. "This is a memory core," she said. "It holds part of my father's mind." Ray crossed his arms. "So now we're talking to ghosts?" Vexa gave him a sharp look. "We're talking to mistakes that refuse to die." She touched the cube to a panel beside the throne. A glowing figure of an old alien man appeared, his face filled with sadness. "My daughter," it said, "if you are hearing this, then the throne is lost and the empire is broken." Vexa's hands trembled, but she stood tall. Ray watched as the ghost spoke of betrayal, war, and a hidden weapon buried under the capital. Then the figure said something that made Ray's blood run cold. "Only the Snuvva can stop the tide of extinction, but once awakened, it cannot be controlled." The image faded, leaving only silence. Ray turned to Vexa. "Why me? Why ask a human to help?" She looked tired, older than before. "Because your kind is not tied to this planet. Your blood is clean, not cursed like mine." Ray didn't like that answer, but he understood the meaning. He was the outsider, unwanted, unpredictable, and maybe their only chance. They left the throne chamber through another tunnel, one that led to an underground hangar. There, covered in dust, was a small starship shaped like a dagger. Its lights flickered on as they approached. Suddenly, a voice spoke from inside the ship, dry and sarcastic. "Oh great. Royalty and a meatbag, just what I needed." Ray raised his rifle. "What the hell was that?" Vexa rolled her eyes. "That's K3ZI, my father's I." "Wonderful," Ray grumbled. "Do all your family members hate humans?" "Only the living ones," she replied with a smirk. The ship's ramp lowered, and they stepped inside. The inside was old but functional, lit by red lights and covered in symbols. K3ZI's voice echoed again. "Please don't touch anything, human. Unless you enjoy exploding mid-flight." Ray ignored the insult and sat in the co-pilot's seat. Vexa strapped in, her hand trembling slightly as she took the controls. She whispered something under her breath, words not meant for him, as the engines roared to life. K3ZI said something that made Ray glance sideways. "You know she's not telling you the full truth, right?" Ray narrowed his eyes. "Yeah, I figured that out." The ship launched into the sky, fire trailing behind them as they broke through the clouds. Ray looked at Vexa, her face glowing with determination. "You sure about this?" She looked at him, dead serious now. "No," she said, "but we've already started the war." And the stars above didn't care who won, only who survived. The second came when he stepped out of the ship and the ground growled under his boots. The planet looked calm from orbit, full of blue trees and clear lakes, but now that they were standing in it, Ray could feel something wrong. The air tasted too sweet. Like a trick, even the silence felt fake. As if the whole world was holding its breath, Vexa said the relic was hidden inside an old temple on this planet. Simple in, simple out, she said, smiling. But Ray had learned something important by now. Whenever she smiled like that, something was about to go wrong. They walked through thick vines and strange glowing grass. Ray kept his rifle ready. K3ZI's voice came through the earpiece with static. If anything jumps at you, scream first, then shoot. Thanks for the advice, Ray said, wiping sweat from his brow. Vexa led them to a stone door covered in handprints. Old and faded, she placed her hand against it. And the prints lit up one by one. The door slid open with a moan, like the planet itself didn't want to let them in. Inside was a wide chamber with floating stones and writing that moved like smoke. At the center was a platform holding a flower, golden, tall, and gently swaying, even though there was no wind. That's it, Vexa whispered. The trial. Ray stared at it, unimpressed. You dragged me here for a flower? Vexa nodded. Pick it up, Ray frowned, but stepped forward. The moment his fingers touched the stem, the ground cracked and the flower screamed. Thorns shot out like knives, wrapping around his arm. Ray yelled, trying to pull back. The vines tightened, pulsing with heat from the walls. Shadow-like creatures began to crawl out, whispering in a language that hurt Ray's ears. Vexa stood frozen, eyes wide. You activated the Guardian, she gasped. You think? Ray shouted, trying to blast the vine off with his rifle. The weapon burned the thorns but did nothing to stop the pain. One of the shadows leapt at him, but Vexa threw a blade through its chest. Ray finally tore the flower free, and everything stopped. The shadows vanished, the vines shriveled, and silence returned. He held the flower, now soft and warm like skin. It pulsed once, then twice, and then went still. Ray dropped to his knees, breathing hard. What kind of test was that? Vexa stepped closer, her face pale. That flower only lets itself be picked by someone who has faced death without fear. Ray looked up at her. You could have warned me. I did, she said quietly. I said, pick it up. That was your warning. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Vexa took the flower and placed it into a small pod she carried. Ray's arm still bled where the thorns had touched him. He noticed strange marks where the vines had wrapped around him, symbols that weren't there before. What's this? He asked, showing her. Vexa's eyes widened. It marked you, she whispered. You've been chosen. Ray didn't like that word. Chosen for what? Vexa didn't answer. Back on the ship, K3ZI scanned the marks and went silent for a full minute. Then the AI said something that made both of them freeze. These marks only appear on living containers. Ray sat down slowly. Containers for what? For energy, the AI replied. Or something worse. That night Ray couldn't sleep. The marks on his skin glowed faintly in the dark. Vexa sat near the window, watching the stars. He walked over and sat beside her. She didn't speak for a long time, then finally said, You were never supposed to be part of this. Human, too late for that now, he replied. She looked at him with something almost like sorrow. If the Snuvva truly wakes, it will need a host, Ray's chest tightened. And you think it's me? She didn't answer, but the way her hand trembled said more than words ever could. In the silence, the ship floated between stars. And somewhere in the dark, something ancient opened one glowing eye. Ray woke up with a knife pressed against his throat. The ship was quiet, no alarms, no danger outside. Just the cold whisper of a blade on his skin. Vexa's eyes stared down at him, wide and filled with something more than anger. She wasn't smiling, and she wasn't joking. Her hand shook, and her voice came out like broken glass. Kill me, she whispered, before it's too late. Ray didn't move, his heart pounded. In his chest, not from fear, but confusion. Vexa, he said slowly, what are you doing? She pressed the knife harder, but her grip was weak. You don't understand, she said. If the marks stay on you, the Snuvva will come, and when it does, it will look for me. He gently pushed her hand aside, the blade falling to the Floor with a soft clink. You think I'm going to murder you in your sleep? He asked. She sat back on the edge of the bed, her head in her hands. I would, she muttered. If I were you. Ray sat up, rubbing his neck where the cold metal had kissed his skin. Tell me the truth, he said. All of it. No more hiding. Vexa didn't lift her head. But her voice told the story anyway. When I was 16, my sister poisoned our father, she said. Then she gave me to the rebels as a gift, a symbol of peace. Ray stayed silent. I was chained to a throne I no longer ruled, dressed in gold, treated like a doll, she continued. But I escaped, and now they want me dead. Because I know the secret of the Snuvva. Ray leaned forward. And what is the Snuvva really? Vexa looked up, her eyes filled with fire. It's not a thing, she said. It's a being. A creature made of thought and power, locked away by the first rulers of my kind. Ray frowned. Then why does it care about you? Because I'm its key, she said. And now you're its lock. Before he could ask what that meant, the ship shook violently. K3Zi's voice shouted through the speakers. Rebel scouts have found us. They're locking on. Ray grabbed his rifle and headed to the control deck. Vexa followed, her hands shaking as she buckled into the seat. The stars spun outside the window as blasts of energy lit up the black sky. Ray fired back from the turret, taking out 2 of the smaller ships. But a larger cruiser moved into view, its cannon charging with a low hum. We can't outrun that, K3ZI said, unless we use the jump drive. That thing barely works, Ray snapped. Then die with honor. The I replied. Ray rolled his eyes. Vexa, hit the jump. She slammed her hand on the control panel, and the stars twisted around them for a second. Everything went white. Then they landed hard on a frozen moon, the ship skidding across ice before crashing into a cliff wall. Ray climbed out first. Checking the area, the sky was dark, lit only by 2 moons and a pulsing green aurora. Snow fell like ash, soft but endless. Vexa stepped out, holding her cloak tight around her. This place, she said. I know this place. You brought us here on purpose? Ray asked. She nodded. This is where it sleeps, together. They walked toward a ruined building buried in the snow. Inside was a single room, walls covered in carvings, and a frozen body sitting on a throne of stone. Vexa approached slowly, staring at the corpse. That was my mother, she said. Her voice cracking, Ray lowered his head, unsure of what to say. She fought the Snuvva once, Vexa whispered. She gave everything to stop it, and still, it whispers through time. Suddenly, the walls began to glow, and the air grew warm. Ray felt the marks on his skin burn like fire. He fell to one knee, gasping. Vexa ran to him, grabbing his arm. It's waking up, she said. It senses you now. Ray's eyes glowed faintly, and his voice came out different. Do you want to be queen, or do you want to be free? Vexa backed away, shocked. Ray? She asked, but he didn't answer. For one terrifying moment, someone else looked out from behind his eyes. And in that moment, the Snuvva began to rise. Inside a burning palace, the ceiling was gone, and above him, stars spun like falling sparks. He looked down and saw the throne beneath his feet, cracked and weeping. Black smoke, a voice whispered from every wall, every flame, every stone. Do you see now, human? Do you see what power feels like? He turned slowly and saw her Vexa, but not the one he knew. She stood tall, dressed in robes of light, her eyes glowing like suns. Her voice echoed deep inside him. You are part of it now. Ray, you carry its seed. He tried to move, but his limbs felt heavy, like they didn't belong to him. What is this? He asked. A dream? No, she answered. A warning. Suddenly he was back on the frozen moon, gasping for air. His body was wet with sweat despite the cold. Vexa knelt beside him, holding his face. You vanished for 3 minutes, she said, her voice panicked. You were glowing, Ray coughed, his mouth dry. I saw the throne. he whispered. It was broken, and you were. Different. Vexa closed her eyes. It's starting. They returned to the ship in silence. K3ZI scanned Ray again, and the AI sounded worried for the first time. You're merging with something ancient, it said. I suggest we find. The throne before your mind becomes soup, Vexa agreed. But her voice trembled with every word. There's only one place left to go, she said. The old capital where my father ruled, Ray looked at her, and where your sister betrayed. You, she nodded slowly. Yes. The ship flew low over the wastelands of the dead empire. What was once a city of gold was now a pile of ash and stone. Towers leaned like dying trees, and statues of kings lay broken in the streets. They landed behind the ruins, cloaked in shadows. Ray stepped out first, his rifle ready. But no one came to greet them, not yet. As they walked toward the throne hall, memories returned to Vexa like ghosts. She pointed to the cracked stairs. My sister stood there when she declared herself ruler. They passed through the shattered archway and into the throne room. Ray stopped cold. The throne was still there, tall and shining like untouched. Silver, but something pulsed beneath it. A heartbeat, slow and deep. Vexa approached. Placing her hand on the throne's surface, it lit up, reacting to her blood, her breath, her name. A voice filled the chamber, not from the throne, but from the floor below. Daughter of traitors, it said, you return with a foreign seed. Ray stepped back as the floor split open, revealing a dark stairway. The voice continued, bring him down, or let the empire rot. Vexa looked at Ray, her eyes filled with dread. I have to take you below, she whispered. What's under the throne? He asked. She didn't answer, but the silence said enough. They descended the stairs, one step at a time. The walls were covered in warnings, drawn in glowing red lines, a language Ray couldn't read, but felt in his bones. At the bottom was a circular chamber made of black stone. In the center floated a crystal heart. Pulsing slowly, Ray stepped closer, and the heart pulsed faster. Vexa held out her hand, stopping him. This is the core, she said. It's where the Snuvva sleeps. Ray felt heat rise in his chest, the marks on his arm glowing bright. The heart responded, beating in sync with his body. I can hear it, he whispered. It wants to wake up. Vexa's eyes filled with tears. If we wake it now, the galaxy will burn. Ray clenched his fists, shaking. Then why did we come here? Because, she said softly, to stop it, we must bond you to the throne. He stared at her in disbelief. You want me to sit on that thing? She nodded. It will take the Snuvva from you, lock it away again. And if it doesn't, then it takes you with it. Ray looked back at the crystal heart, now glowing brighter. He took a slow breath. Fine, he said. Let's try your crazy plan. As he climbed the last steps toward the throne, the whole chamber began to shake. Stone cracked, the air turned hot, and deep underground, the Snuvva began to stir. Not angry, not evil, just awake. Ray opened his eyes and found himself sitting on the throne. But he didn't remember sitting down. The room was spinning. Glowing symbols floated in the air, whispering his name over and over again. The throne felt cold at first, then warm, then something else entirely like it was breathing. Vexa stood frozen at the edge of the platform, her hand pressed over her heart. K3ZI's voice came through the cum, louder than usual. Whatever you're doing, stop it. The throne is activating the core too fast. Ray tried to move, but his body wouldn't listen. The throne had locked him in, its tendrils sliding around his arms and spine. He gasped, not from pain, but from the strange rush of memories not his own. He saw ancient stars being born and dying, ships the size of planets, voices speaking in languages older than time. He saw Vexa as a child, crying in her sister's arms, begging her not to betray their father. He saw fire, rebellion, and something dark rising from the center of a planet. Then he saw himself not now, but far in the future, eyes glowing, voice not his own, he screamed, and the throne answered. It sent a shockwave through the entire chamber, cracking the stone walls. Vexa ran forward, placing her hand on his chest. "You have to fight it," she shouted. "It's trying to take everything." Ray's voice came out deeper, slower. "Too strong," he said. "It wants to live again." Just then, a hidden door opened behind the throne. Footsteps echoed, sharp and fast. A woman stepped into the chamber, her armor shining, her smile cold as ice. "Hello, little sister," she said. Vexa froze, her eyes wide with disbelief. "You," she whispered. "You're supposed to be dead." The woman laughed, stepping closer. "I was never going to die. Not until I took back what you stole." She looked at Ray, strapped to the throne, glowing with power. "So this is your little puppet," she said. "Does he even know what he is?" Ray blinked, trying to focus. "What am I?" The woman raised her hand and energy sparked from her fingers. "You're not just a container," she said. "You're the trigger." Vexa stepped between them, shouting, "You'll kill him." The woman smiled cruelly. "That's the point." K3ZI's voice crackled in Ray's ear. "She planted something inside you, human, long ago when you first arrived." Ray's heart pounded. "This was a setup," he whispered. The throne began to pulse faster, the Snuvva inside him waking fully now. Vexa turned to Ray, her hands glowing with energy. "Trust me," she said. "Let me in." Ray had no time to think, only to choose. He nodded barely. Vexa touched her forehead to his, and the throne exploded with light. For a moment, everything stopped. Then the chamber was filled with a storm of raw power, swirling around them like a hurricane. The other woman screamed, trying to block the wave, but it knocked her back, slamming her against the wall. Vexa cried out as energy passed through her, linking her with Ray. Their minds touched, and for a moment, he saw her memories, her loneliness, her pain, her hope. And she saw his, the exile, the loss, the quiet strength he never showed. The throne calmed, its light fading to a steady pulse. Ray breathed again, the marks on his arms glowing gently. Vexa knelt beside him, exhausted but alive. "You're not the trigger anymore," she said softly. "We changed it." Ray touched her cheek. "What now?" The other woman rose, bruised but still proud. "This isn't over," she spat. K3ZI cut in, voice dry. "It is for now." The power surge just shut down half the planet. Vexa stood tall. "We have one more step," she said. "We must return to the council and show them the throne has chosen its king." Ray frowned. "I didn't sign up to be king." Vexa smiled weakly. "No, but you sat down anyway." Outside the skies had cleared, but somewhere far beyond the stars, the Snuvva waited, patient, listening. It wasn't done yet, and neither were they. Surrounded by golden light and silence, the rebel fleet had stopped shooting, their weapons turned cold by fear or awe. Below, the throne pulsed with life. No longer just a seat, it was a heart, and Ray was the blood inside it. Vexa stood in the tower's shadow, her cloak torn, her hands shaking as she looked up. "He chose the throne," she whispered, not with anger, but something deeper, something almost like regret. Ray heard her voice in his mind, soft and distant. "I never wanted this," she said. He didn't answer, not with words. His thoughts were fire now, and thunder. He could feel every rebel soldier hiding in the city, every frightened heartbeat, every lie ever told under this sky. He could end them all with a thought. One flash of light and the throne would wipe them away like dust, but he didn't. Instead, Ray closed his eyes and saw a girl in chains, making jokes to hide her fear. He saw a throne that devoured its rulers. He saw himself, broken, exiled, forgotten, and yet still standing. The Snuvva whispered to him, ancient and tempting. "Be a god," it said. "Shape the stars." Ray opened his eyes again and looked down at Vexa. She was no longer a mystery. She was just someone who wanted what she had lost. and he understood that too well. He descended slowly. The light fading from around his body, his feet touched the broken floor of the Capitol. The rebels aimed their weapons, confused and afraid. Ray raised a hand not to attack, but to speak. "No more thrones," he said. "No more chains." His voice echoed through the ruins, across every speaker. "To those still loyal to the old empire," he said, "lay down your guns." To the rebels, he added, "You've already won, but that victory means nothing if we become the monsters we overthrew." The soldiers looked to one another, unsure. Then, slowly, the weapons dropped. One by one, the fight ended, not with an explosion, but with silence. Vexa walked toward him, her eyes wet, her lips trembling. "You were never meant to sit on the throne," she said. Ray nodded. "And yet, it listened." She stepped closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "So what now?" He smiled faintly. "Now we break it." Together, they turned to face the throne. Vexa placed her hand on its base. Ray touched the top. The throne glowed one last time, then cracked. The energy inside roared like a caged beast released at last. And then, it was gone. Nothing remained but stone and silence. Later, when the city began to breathe again, when food returned to the streets and songs replaced war cries, Ray stood at the edge of a quiet garden. Vexa joined him, wearing no crown, no armor, only a scarf and a tired smile. "I never gave you what I promised," she said, almost teasing. Ray looked at her, raising an eyebrow. "You mean the Snuvva between your legs?" She laughed, covering her face. "That was a joke," Ray grinned. "And yet, you kept it." They stood there for a long time, saying nothing. No throne, no power, no destiny. Just two people who had nearly become gods, and chose instead to stay human. In the stars above them, the Snuvva drifted, sleeping again, waiting for the next fool who thought they could rule it. But tonight, it dreamed of peace, because one human had said no, and a broken princess had believed him.